Wonderfully sweet and slightly sour all at once. This tangy strawberry lemonade cider is like a big burst of juiciness in your mouth. And it's the perfect quick and easy homebrew as the weather starts to heat up. This classic flavor pairing gets a new hoppy spin as I show you how to make this delicious strawberry lemonade hard cider at home. I'm Trent Musho and this is The Brew Show. Let's make some cider. If you watched last week's video, then you know I'm on a journey to brew up some delicious gluten-free recipes. And to start off, I thought a cider would be the perfect thing. Ciders are ridiculously easy and probably the most accessible way to brew something gluten-free. If you haven't brewed one before, you really have no excuse to not start one today. All you need is a fermenter, some store-bought apple juice, and some yeast. From there you can get as creative as you want, which is exactly what I plan to do for this hopped strawberry lemonade hard cider. The color on the cider is just kissed with the slightest bit of red hue on top of that golden apple juice color. On the aroma is a swirl of fresh picked strawberries with a pop of citrus coming in from the hops. And when you take a sip, it's a mix of sweet and tangy with a good amount of strawberry flavor poking through the apple and then accented with the lemon flavor. There's also a bit of bitterness from those hops, and it really ties this all together, making it a truly unique drinking experience. And it's super refreshing, the ideal summer sipper. So that's the results. Let's back up to the start and see how it was actually made. We're making a 1.5 gallon batch. Feel free to scale this recipe up or down if you like. All the ingredients will be in the description box. Keep in mind that if you're brewing for someone gluten intolerant or has an even more extreme reaction to gluten, you should start with a new fermenter bucket dedicated to gluten-free brewing, especially if you've brewed beer or other gluten-rich fermentations in it. I've got a video on how to make a simple fermenter for $10 if you need help getting started. Let's run through the ingredients you'll need for this hard cider. First up, the apple juice. I always recommend using 100% real juice with no preservatives in it. They'll usually have the word sorbate, sulfite, or benzoate. These preservatives will keep your fermentation from getting started right. Next we'll need some strawberries, preferably freshly picked, since it's the perfect season, and then frozen overnight. Or if you can only find frozen strawberries, that's totally fine. But after they freeze, take them out for an hour or so before to allow them to start to thaw and break down those cell walls, unleashing their fruity goodness. My general rule of thumb is 1 pound of fruit per 1 gallon. So I'll be adding in 1.5 pounds of strawberries. Lastly, you'll need the yeast. Since this is specifically a gluten-free recipe, make sure to find a gluten-free yeast. This Lutra dry pack is gluten-free, but not all Lutras are, so make sure you check. But I love Lutra because it works well in most temperature ranges, and it ferments clean. One additional and optional thing to add would be yeast nutrients. They help the fermentation be healthy and ensure it gets off to a great start. I'll be using Fermaid today. And if you want to know more about why I think you should add nutrients to your fermentations, check out my video on it. Okay, with all those items together, time to add it to the bucket fermenter, starting with the strawberries. Then the nutrients, if you have them, followed by the juice, 1.5 gallons. Lastly, I'll be sprinkling on half the packet of this Lutra yeast, and be saving the rest for next week's video. Stay tuned for that. Give it a good shake to mix all the ingredients and incorporate oxygen, and then top it with an airlock and set it somewhere for a week. If you're the gravity taking type, you should take it after the fruit has infused its sugars into the juice, but before you add the yeast to get the most accurate reading. But I just took the reading of the juice and got 1.050, and that's good enough for me. Feel free to check in after a day or so to make sure the strawberries are nice and mixed in. They tend to kind of float to the top and can create sort of a fruit cap that can dry out. So give them a good stir with a sanitized utensil and then close it back up. About 3 or 4 days into fermentation, it's time to add in the final flavor component, to add that tangy lemon flavor. But not with real fruit or extract, but instead with hops. Lemondrop hops, to be exact. They'll add a citrusy twist with a slight hint of bitterness that will have strawberry lemonade vibes washing over you as you take a sip. I love adding hops to my ciders. I've done it before and it always turns out fantastic. I'm simply tossing in a ½ ounce straight into the fermenter and then closing it up and letting this ferment for another few days. I'm curious to know, what other flavor combinations do you think would taste good in a cider? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Finally, after 7 days total, I take a final gravity reading and get 1.000. which means this one clocks in at about 6.5%, give or take. If you find that this is too tart, you can always back sweeten with your favorite non-fermentable sugar. From there, you can either bottle it or keg it up. I chose to keg it so I can drink it faster. And boy, was I glad I did. This bright and refreshing cider is just what I want to be drinking on a warm and sunny day. If you end up making this cider, I'd love to hear from you. Send me some pics on Instagram. And let me know if you have any questions. Cheers and happy brewing.